All right, good morning, everyone. 47 minutes after the hour on this Tuesday. Welcome to Storm Talk. I'm Wave Meteorologist Brian Good. I'll go ahead and say right out of the gate here, in case you haven't already noticed on your own end today of trying to surf the internet. Cloudflare being down today in Atlanta has messed up a lot of things. I know Twitter has been down back and forth. In fact, our Twitter accounts even here right now are not working at the moment, so the blog can even go there. But it is affecting our weather data as well. We're missing several key models today that we look at. And I'll go ahead and say for Adam and Cameron, if you're in here, yeah, this will affect the matrix today. Can't give you any snow data for long term because we can't get to it. So kind of a pain today with that being down. Kind of certainly always sheds the light, doesn't it, on our vulnerability to internet connections. And when you don't have them, things can be hampered quite a bit. So a lot of old school fashioned stuff here today of looking at just the nowcasting side of things, which is always fun. I love that, actually. It's always fun and exciting to watch how things will evolve later today. But I'll have some pieces of data to share with you. But again, we're not going to have a lot today just because of the problems that the network is all having across the globe today. All right, so we're going to go into that. Obviously, the short term is going to be about today's setup, which is still a very interesting one, especially for areas south and west of Louisville. We'll cover that, and then we'll get into our second system this week. And then, obviously, we'll get into some of the long term, including Thanksgiving, which Thanksgiving is going to keep changing, I got a feeling, several times. Adam, I just saw your comments on that about your rain. In fact, we just got a report of some of the roadways going underwater there into Bloomington. So you already got 1.13, and we're getting some streets that are going underwater there. So appreciate that. You may see some of those reports come in at times with wavy at the bottom as the MPs are coming in. So be aware of that throughout the blog with a likely reference is areas to the north of us, especially that picked up some of the higher rain totals. Okay, let's get you outside and we'll talk about how we got that overcast sky in the area now. It's been a chilly day, right? A chilly rain that we've had in the area. So it's hard to imagine that we're talking about thunderstorms getting into the mix, especially in about an hour or two. Another round will move in and then more into this evening. And I think we could get some strong storms at play. But it's the warmer push of air that is trying its best to work its way into wave country. That is the problem here today. And that's why some of you will deal with a chilly rain for the rest of the day. You don't have to worry about anything on the stormy side. While the rest of you, especially the Southwest, again in Louisville, will have to deal with at least a low-end severe risk as we get into later on. Dell, I just got that. Yeah, just the chemical spill. We just got, we sent out the notification on the Wave app just a second ago about the shelter in place. I don't have that listed here. As far as the radius, and see, it looks like it's 0.5 from Pasco, which is 5100 Loop Road. They are advising everyone in Clark County due to a leaking semi-trailer in that area. Again, half a mile from Pasco, which is 5140 Loop Road area that we're talking about. They're advising everyone to close their air conditioner intake if you have your AC on. Hopefully, you probably don't because it's so chilly out. Close your doors and the windows, fireplace, dampers, and remain indoors and stay tuned. And we'll keep you updated on our end and as well as from Jeffersonville Police. But again, this is in Clark County and Jeffersonville. Half a mile from Pasco, shelter in place has been issued from 5140 Loop Road. And as we get more information, I'll pass that along to you guys here, even if I'm on. Otherwise, Myra may be jumping, and we'll see if they run in here with an update. I'll let them take over. Okay, that's more important than anything I got to tell you guys on the extended outlook for sure. All right, we'll come back around to that. Right now it's 45 in Louisville, 41 in Madison, 45 into LaGrange, 50 into Mufferville. But look at that. See that yellow? Those are 60s that are showing up there at south and west of Louisville that are building to the northeast here and trying to push into our, certainly West Kentucky, I think is a spot to watch. But in our southwest fringe counties, so anywhere from Round, Perry County, Breckenridge, Grayson, Hardin, Hart, maybe even LaRue, you'll have to be on standby for maybe some strong storms because there's still some questions on how far north this warm push is going to go. Will it go all the way toward Louisville? Will it stop before it even gets too fully into Litchfield? Good question. That we just have to take it 1 hour at a time because the weather data is not great today. So we just got to watch the trends on the thermometers and the radar to give us an idea of how things are going to trend for the rest of the afternoon especially. All right, so we had the first round of rain to move through. You can see how it's a little more horizontal in nature across Indiana. This is what's leading to the higher rain totals that are taking place around Bloomington, Lawrence County, all the way into Jennings. This is a training effect of heavy rain here for the next hour, especially for our northern tier. Louisville and really far southern Indiana have had a chance to have a bit of a break in that area. That's allowed us to catch back up on travel anyway. We had a kind of a messy morning, right? We'll likely get another round here. We will, in fact, another round with lightning and thunder a little more prevalent in this second batch that'll be moving in here shortly. That'll overtake Louisville and I-65. It's about right on schedule. We were thinking late morning to lunch as the time period, and it's arriving right on time. This is not anything severe, but this next batch may contain some pea-sized hail. I wouldn't rule that out, but I do not see anything on the severe side with this particular section rolling on through. Now, it does get a little stronger in the southern tier of that as you get into areas around Paducah. That has a little more of a kick to it, a little more likelihood to get some hail out of these, maybe in close to severe limits on hail, quarter size. I wouldn't rule it out, and that'd be approaching Bowling Green and maybe southern Grayson County if it holds together, which it likely will. Dragging its feet just a bit. There's a bit of a tilt here to this. So the flow is a little bit stronger along the front than south of it. So that's the reason why everything's moving a little faster on northern counties and our southern tier, but eventually you will get some of that action heading your way as well. All right, my concern I got, looking at the hail parameters, by the way, you can see that this is one way you can look at that. We're looking for anything that's yellow and red that indicates a greater hail potential. Do not see that signal. So right now, again, this would be very, very small hail, if anything, the way it looks now, but it could grow in size as it heads a little more south and east. We'll be watching it, but I do not see anything alarming at all with this configuration. Okay, we get into Illinois. Interesting here. The sun's out. The sun has been able to punch through. Most of the model data I've been able to get today does not even have that idea at play. Doesn't even mention it, in fact, in its data. So this is interesting. We'll see how much this can warm things up in Illinois as that pushes in for later on this afternoon and evening. Otherwise, our main concern is going to be this evening's batch, the very last and final round. And that is just now showing up. The kicker to ignite that is back into St. Louis. So we got some time. Typically, it can be up to 6 to 8 hours before you have to worry about that. And I think that's about what we're expecting for a time period for that to eventually swoop in later on this afternoon. Very close to sunset, if not after sunset, before we get into really a severe mindset. Any type of warnings that could get issued. Anything before that should just be your run-of-the-mill downpours, lightning, thunder, maybe some PCIS mixed in, but a fairly cool setup for now. Here is one thing we're watching. Let me show you the wind field. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. You see the surge of that south wind right into West Kentucky, pumping in those 60s west of Paducah and Bowling Green into southern areas of Illinois. Then you get into areas right along the parkways, south and west of Louisville through E-Town, all the way through about Santa Claus, Indiana, Holiday World. You get into Du Bois County and then back toward near St. Louis. That is where the wind shift is happening, right through there. That's where the warm front, the boundary is located. That's the key player, is this warm front, how this evolves later today, because thunderstorms will be developing on the southern side of that and then tracking over the warm front. That creates kind of an odd effect here. And let me explain. Let me tilt everything sideways. And we're looking at this really from the southeast side here of wave country. The warm front, again, draped right across our southern counties, just south and west of Louisville. This is going right through Indiana, right into E-Town. Thunderstorms on the northern side of the front are a little more elevated, a little off the ground. You can get some hail that can come out of these. Typically, it's usually smaller than quarter size, like dime to maybe nickel size is a little more common. One or two cases of quarter size could take place, and that would be where you would likely get any type of severe thunderstorm warning today. Would be the thunderstorms that track over the warm front and get into Indiana and around Louisville. That would be our likely main threat we'll see. However, the thunderstorms on the south side of the warm front are a little closer to the ground. They're not as high up on their bases, a little bit lower. These are the ones that can produce more of your wind damage, and in some isolated cases, maybe even a brief tornado that can develop. The boundary is crucial on that. Right along that boundary, when they begin to ride over it and then become a little more elevated, that's the spot to watch for our trouble today. And we're going to be monitoring that. And I will say there's a little bit more of a southwest shift today than what I've seen in the data so far this morning. It's trying to aim a little more toward areas just outside of wave country, but I still think we need to watch that area from around Perry County through E-Town all the way into Hart County as we get into this afternoon, evening. The Storm Prediction Center has the marginal risk that is out for this type of setup to account for the hailers on the northern side of the front and then your severe potential on the south side of the front. So it's kind of drawn evenly. That's fair. Now, will there be a slight risk that's drawn? Potentially. And in fact, based on the sun coming out in Illinois, I got a feeling they're going to do that, actually. I think if they were to draw it right now, my hunch on that is it would be southwest Indiana, maybe grazing or clipping our southwest counties, and a little more likely in West Kentucky. Land between the lakes area, Muhlenberg County, Christian County, Hopkinsville area, all the way up through even Ohio County, may have to deal with a little bit more of a severe threat based on what I'm looking at so far on the front placement. That's a little more prone. Again, I can't roll out warnings north of that line just because of mainly hail, but certainly got to watch areas to the southwest of that boundary today. Breaking down, in fact, your tornado threat, they have it listed from around Corydon, very low end threat through Bardstown and Marion County. But again, if I were to look at the trends I'm seeing right now, I would shave off just a little bit more on that, a bit more of a sharper angle. But the next few hours are crucial. How that evolves with the heating back in Illinois, since the models didn't catch that, how is that going to play into the front? How tall will these thunderstorms become? How much fuel and cape will these have as they build in later? But this is all last minute, too. I mean, we're talking a good 8 hours from now before they really develop. And that's a challenge. We're going to have a messy radar before then. And that's going to help us out in many cases. That will allow for a much more of a, hold on one second. I just got an alert here. Let's see. Okay, just from our internal systems letting us know that there's a problem with Cloudflare. And that's the reason why they're having a lot of communication issues. Okay, sorry. It was a very weird screen that just popped up on. I've never seen it before, actually. So a lot of internet problems today. A lot of issues today. It's only Tuesday, guys. We don't need this much drama on a Tuesday. It's too much. All right, breaking down the other threats real quick. Here's your wind gust potential. That's possible, and I think you would likely only see a damaging wind gust if you got any type of Boeing segment, and that will be possible with that last round as well. They'll have a supercellular type of structure to them, but one or two could develop a Boeing segment near and south of that warm front. Yes, that could produce a severe thunderstorm warning, but that is about as isolated as even the tornado threat is. Everything's very isolated. If this is a day where I were to rank things, I would actually put hail at the top. Then I would put your tornado threat and then the damaging winds last. We don't do that very often, but I would put the tornado threat in the middle of the threats. If I had to layer it like a cake, that's how it looks to me right now. All right. It's overall marginal. That's fair. But I mean, a storm that can cause damage is, even if it's one, that's a problem. So we're very close to our alert day status here, guys. So we're going to be monitoring it. Right now, with it being a little more focused, a little southwest of what the data currently shows, I don't want to alarm anyone fully just yet, but I think the awareness is high on this one, right? I think everyone's been talking about it, so everyone's somewhat aware, I hope anyway. And if we feel that that's not the case, or we feel the threat is going to be a little more north, as it currently is indicated on this particular graphic, then we will go with an alert date. But we're discussing that every hour, and we'll just keep you posted. So stay tuned for alerts on the Wave Weather app if that decision is made. Your hail potential, fair. I think that's good placement, because you're going to get hail potential on the south and the north side of the front both. So that's totally fair. Okay, let me show you the HER model. This is updating, so we got something that's working. We're off to a good start. Here's the current setup. Did great. I think it has a good handle on this. We're currently heading into in the 11 o'clock hour this morning. These thunderstorms are on by. Here we go at 1 o'clock. Again, very tilted setup. Everything's moving faster on the northern side of the front, slower on the southern side. So it becomes very elongated, and there's a bit of a training effect for sure. And that's going to lead to some impressive rain totals. Even in the Louisville area, we could end up with over an inch of rain, maybe up to 2 inches of rain in Louisville and central Kentucky with this kind of a setup through lunch and early afternoon. So please be careful if you got to travel over the next few hours. It's going to be a bit messy out. We get into the afternoon commutes, still a bit messy with the showers and storms. We're still watching, though, for these supercells that would try to form in far west Kentucky and southwest Indiana. And when we get into the storm zone, anytime after 5 p.m., we need to watch for that area. I'm looking now, this particular model run, this updates every hour. This is the most recent update. Still pretty messy. Hard to get anything to really fire up in that kind of a setup in Louisville. So that doesn't look concerning at all. It just looks like a mess. That itself may even trigger an alert day, to be honest. If we run into a lot of issues with high water causing roads being a mess at rush hour, that could be flagged. So there's multiple ways you can get alert day really today in this kind of a setup. All right, here we go with the cells that are forming. Roughly, it looks like 8 to 9 o'clock. You can't even see them. They're a little off screen. Let me see if we can move the radar. There we go. Yeah, that is what I am monitoring. And you see that's out of wave country. That would be Paducah, land between the lakes, and heading toward eventually Nashville. These are the type of supercells you do not want to see, but they're on the south side of the front, a little more rooted, down to the ground. These are the ones that are a little more of a threat. Is this model right? Good question, but so far it's done well today. So it's hard to ignore when it does well like that. And you get into the evening hours, you can see most of the, by the time we get to midnight and certainly thereafter, it's already in Tennessee. This is not anything to be alarmed about into Kentucky. So it's an interesting setup for sure this afternoon. One, we got to take it 1 hour at a time. But if you are southwest of Louisville, just be on guard for a bit longer. I don't want to clear you guys until we get a handle on how these cells will evolve later today. But even in Louisville and Indiana, it's going to be issues with flash flooding today, high hydroplaning concerns, and certainly when it comes to hail, I think those are the two issues we'll be facing for a lot of you watching right now. Our southwest side, it's a little more of a isolated tornado threat. Shonda, won't it lessen the severe once it gets dark? Yes, in most cases it will, but this is a different setup where you get more of a dynamic setup with warmer air being injected into the front. So yes, that does play out and helps us in a big way in most areas. But when you when you change your condition outside, and a warm front is notorious for doing this, when you go from a more rainy, cool, rainy environment and you get a warm front that moves in, it's that retreating warm front aspect when you are able to create what we call these rotating updrafts that kind of build up and that warm surge. It's just that motion that thunderstorms are a little more sensitive to. Even without a tremendous amount of heating, they're a little more sensitive to that, and they can produce isolated tornadoes in that setup. So it's a little different than a cold front moving into an unstable setup, and we get supercells and tornadoes moving through. I think in this environment, we're not going to have enough heating in that kind of a setup. So this is really all about the warm front, the lifting of the air versus the idea of a colder punch of air slicing into this. I hope that makes sense. You can get severe weather both ways, but with a warm front, it is a little different. And it is very common to get a lot of rotating thunderstorms going from a very stable, rainy environment, and suddenly you become unstable and you can get isolated severe weather. And I do not expect that for most of the area. That will only be our southwest side. So make sure I'm clear on that. Okay. All right. Here's what the, let's see, AI models, CSU, are showing. And if you look carefully, the top 4 squares are for today. Low end tornado risk. I don't know if you guys can see that. Sorry, my pen never works when I draw. Low end tornado threat right over Kentucky there. Your hail threat, if you look carefully, and I apologize, I should have zoomed in, but it is a little elevated right over Kentucky. That second box there, right over Kentucky. The hail threat is a little bit higher. And then you got your damage wind threat almost at all areas. So nothing too excessive there, but it is enough that I think that a slight risk could get drawn in West Kentucky and to Northwest Tennessee. I don't know how much of our area would be included if they drew one. It would be just a very brushing up against our counties kind of idea, the way it looks to me right now. Okay. Looking ahead, we are looking already at Friday. Yes, the issue's already got a hint of some gusty thunderstorms on Friday. We'll be monitoring that, more on that here in just a second. All right, any questions on this before I get into the longer term? CSU, I'll just show that. Sorry, Chris, I probably just saw your comment. Anyone good? Anyone good? Any sun breaks today would be bad, but it's hard to get sun breaks north of the warm front. It's a little more common along and south of it. So the Illinois clearing is interesting, but I think that's all likely going to fill in because everything's tilting at a very awkward slant here. So I think it's all going to become very congested. So I think if anything, it would just fire up the supercells for this evening in Illinois that would race into West Kentucky. But I don't know how much longer they'll be able to survive after that point. It's pretty complex setup here. Not a fun one to analyze, to be honest, especially with limited data today. But it's not great. But it's kind of multiple issues. But warm fronts are notorious for being a pain. They are a pain in this kind of environment in the cool season. So most of you, I think, will be fine. So I make sure I'm clear on that. Everyone's good. Just our southwest side we need to watch. Okay, everyone good? Type 3 if you're good. If that all made sense, let me know. Because if not, I want to make sure everyone's clear. I don't want you guys to leave here thinking there's going to be a tornado outbreak today. I don't want you to leave here thinking that nothing's going to happen. I want you guys to understand the conditional setup that we're facing roughly 5, 6 p.m. through about 10 p.m. That's the time period to watch for how that will evolve into West Kentucky and kind of graze our southwest counties. David, I wish there was a supercell of snow. I think a lot of people probably do. Everyone good? Okay. All right. So what about the next system before I get into the Thanksgiving mess? Our next system arrives Thursday into Friday this week, should leave town Saturday. This one is actually similar. I don't think it's going to be as tight of a temperature gradient compared to what we have today from northeast side of wave country down to the southwest. I mean, it's about a 30-degree difference in some cases today. I don't see it being that dramatic, but I think it's enough that we could run into another issue of maybe some gusty winds or hail being involved. Don't see any indicator yet on the tornado threat. And that's not shocking. It's a little hard to see that even this close to the event. We need a high res to get a little bit more of a scope on the soundings, and they're not there yet. So right now, just on paper, they're similar. So I can't rule out a severe risk that may grow as we get closer. The system did the exact same thing. Wouldn't surprise me that its twin here may do a similar setup for Thursday into Friday. If there were to be one of the days that would stand out on that idea, it probably would be Friday. Okay. So that will be our next storm we'll be watching move on by. Again, should be leaving town at least by lunch on Saturday. Most of that rain should be east. Then we'll get a break, and then we get ready for Thanksgiving week. And now here's where the fun begins. When do we get our next system to roll out? That's sitting here in Texas. GFS, some of the other globals want to roll it out fast. Some want to hold it back. Euro tends to hold back systems in the Southern Rockies and the Four Corners. It's kind of a bias of the Euro to be a little slow with that idea, but it would aim a little more toward Thanksgiving with a slower idea. If it rolls out faster, it would be more of a Monday night, Tuesday, maybe early Wednesday issue with active weather in the week, and then maybe a second system altogether that may roll in for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. So there's still some questions on the timing, and that obviously will have a great impact on what we'll actually get. But as of now, we'll go with a mainly quiet early Thanksgiving week. I mean by Monday and Tuesday. That would be the cutoff. Once we get into Wednesday, all bets are off. At that point, we'll start to increase the rain chance in the area. And then we got to see the angle that this is going to take. And we talked about that yesterday. And today, ooh, look at that rain snow line. Oh, boy. Getting a little close. Getting a little close. Here we are Wednesday night, and it's already pushing down to I-70. This is really ramping up a bit more on the colder side. In fact, we get into Thanksgiving morning. The rain snow line has already pushed past Louisville Thanksgiving morning. So the data yesterday I was looking at had mid-60s for Thanksgiving. Today, it's barely got us in the mid-40s. That's a 20-degree drop, all because of a speed change and really the track here, the angle of attack, if you will, it moves to the northeast, how that cold air wraps in behind it. The Canadian, by the way, was the first to hint at that, and it still does. And now the Euro is trying to jump on it. GFS is back and forth. It doesn't know what it wants to do. So there is a little more of a concern, maybe getting some wintry weather involved in the system, Thanksgiving or Black Friday, but I can't get more specific than that. It's too unstable on the data we're getting. So I can just tell you the trends that I've noticed, as we always try to be very transparent in explaining that. The trends I'm noticing are to certainly bring in colder air faster with the Thanksgiving Black Friday system than what it looked like before. And what does that mean for us? Will it mean just the rain moves through and then we shut off and become dry and there's not enough moisture for anything wintry? That's possible. That's absolutely fair, but it will be cold. If you plan on doing some shopping on Black Friday, it looks cold. I'm talking like single-digit wind chills, kind of cold for the entire holiday weekend. And what we got to watch for, when you get a trough like this that digs, a very dramatic trough, you have to watch for it to how far south will it dive, because there is going to be an obvious reaction that the I-20, I-40 corridor will have. Low pressure will likely develop somewhere along this and then try to take advantage of that colder air and push into it. That would likely be right beyond this outlook. This is where the outlook stops, by the way, that I can show you. But just beyond that, it would likely then hint at another system that could have a wintry look to it. And that would be about the last day or so of November, maybe that Sunday or Monday into the holiday weekend. So this is an interesting setup that will need to be watched carefully for Thanksgiving weekend. We've been battling with this forecast for a while, as you guys are fully aware. It's been on the snowboard, off the snowboard, back and forth, trying to figure out when do we see the flip into getting some colder air involved. And Thanksgiving has kind of been back and forth, speeding up. So that's still the case, but at least there's a little more support for a colder setup than there was before. Hey, Cameron, can you explain this stratospheric warming? Cameron, that's hard to explain, but I will try. I've gone into it more on the winter forecast setup, but stratospheric warming is, especially sudden stratospheric warming, the SSW that Cameron is typing out, is all about the upper layers of the atmosphere where it matters and around the North Pole. When you have an obvious wind that is circulating here in a counterclockwise fashion, when you begin to weaken the polar vortex, which is what that is, you weaken it, it slows down, it slows down, it slows down. And in many cases, then suddenly you reverse it. Everything goes slowly the other way. And when you have that, it warms the upper layers of the atmosphere. That pushes the colder air that was up there down to the surface, and it gets into the troposphere, where we are all at, where weather happens, is our layer of the atmosphere closer to the ground. It pushes the colder air down and moves it out of the North Pole. Sometimes it goes right into the Ohio Valley and attacks us with a cold Arctic blast. Sometimes it can go into Europe. There's other teleconnections that come into play on that. That's the challenge we've got. We can tell that there's going to be a stratospheric warming event that's taking place. In fact, here's the chart that still indicates it's still going to happen. See that green line dropping down? That's that wind relaxing, allowing for the reversal to happen. It's still there. So we know it's going to happen. What we don't know is when do we see the cold air from up above translate down to the troposphere, and then when does it move into the United States? That part of the forecast is going to be very difficult to nail down in advance. It's going to be down to the wire, usually within a maybe 10 to 14 day window. We may get an idea, but that may even be a stretch. But it's going to be very close on the call on when that will happen. But as soon as we see the signal on that, it is very apparent on all the global models when that happens, because they all scream it rapidly. It's a dramatic flip that happens in the models every time we get one of these events, and you'll see it. And you'll see it all over social media if you haven't already. Once that happens, then we get the cold attack, and then it will likely hold for a while. I would say 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, it could hold in the area. And that will be a pretty brutal period of cold and maybe some snow, but it could be cold and dry. Can't tell on moisture this far out. But these are dry air masses, so you know where I'm going with that. But it's still happening into the end of the month here, into December. That's when the reversal takes place. Modeling still strong on that. But again, we don't know how quickly we see the lower layers of the atmosphere react to it. And that's where the models will hint at it one day. They take it away the next model run, even on the same day. Then they're back at it again. You're going to get whiplash. Don't pay any attention to that. You can't look at each model run for that. You got to wait until everything locks in and repeats itself and it develops a trend. Then you'll have a very clear signal that it's starting to happen when the models start to latch on in the short range. But they can't see this yet, not fully. There's not enough data on that, but we can tell at least the pattern is supporting this idea, and meteorologically we know what's going to happen next. We just can't tell you all the finer details. Now, I don't know what you want to know, but if this certainly does unleash the reversal as it looks, it will have take place. But yeah, it's going to be a cold December. Last year was cold, but this year will be a lot colder. Fair enough? All right. I hope I explained that sort of well. Basically, Carrie, to put it in a very, it's replaced with, yeah, exactly, with a low pressure, the polar vortex, which is what the polar vortex is a low pressure. It replaced with a dome of high pressure into the northern part of the globe, and that reverses things. So yes, reversing your ceiling fans. I like that analogy. That's a fair one. That is a fair one. Alert tone's going off at UPS because of lightning nearby. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're going to have an increase in lightning for sure over the next 1 to 2 hours. You may be hearing that a lot. But I do not see anything severe with this batch moving in. This looks to be just mainly heavy rain and lightning. Maybe some pea-size hail coming through. All right. You guys good? I feel like I've thrown a lot of weirdness at you today, so I apologize. There's just a lot. There's a lot to decipher. I wish I could talk to you guys for 3 hours, because it would probably take 3 hours to explain this all. But here's where we're going to go with this. Today, obviously, our main focal point, and it needs to be, is what's going to happen out of Illinois and West Kentucky and how much a wave country is involved in that drama. We're watching that. Stay tuned. I promise you, we'll let you know as soon as we get an idea of where the trends are going. The app is the very first notification we're going to send out. So pay attention to the Wave Weather app. Make sure you get it downloaded, have notifications turned on, and that's the first thing we're going to type up and hit send on. Okay? Don't rely on Twitter today because it's down in many cases. It's not doing well because of this outage. So don't rely on that. Just rely on the app. Tomorrow we'll get a break. Thursday and Friday. Right now we'll go just general rain and thunder, but there's a chance we may end up with some hail getting involved with that too, and a low and severe risk, but I don't see anything alarming as of now. We get into next week, Thanksgiving week, very complex setup. 1 to 2 systems potentially rolling through. Likely to be rain, certainly for the very first storyline of whatever one rolls out, but a transition to colder, maybe some wintry weather at the end of it is on the table. And I don't know if that's going to be before or after we sit down and eat Thanksgiving turkey. That may be split, and maybe part of the holiday is rain and part of it may be something wintry. I don't know. But if you have travel plans for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, make sure to stay close to the forecast, because even if it is cold and dry, those wind chills will be quite tough to get around in. It's going to be quite brutal of a cold blast. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to stop rambling for now. If you missed what I said earlier, this will stop and it will replay. I do not have any other updates on the shelter in place. Again, with a chemical spill for my semi-trailer at 5140 Loop Road in Jeffersonville. Shelter in place is out. Half-mile radiation. Close all the vents in your home and stay inside. We'll continue to monitor that. We'll have more, of course, on that coming up today on midday at 11 a.m. Thanks for watching, guys. And no offense, but I hope I don't see you later today.